Hey group, how's everybody doing today?
Doing great. How you guys doing?
Uh,
Good. It's bright and early.
yeah, that's the way I like it. I'm normally the guy who's up at around 4 o'clock. Today I got up a little earlier than that, 3:30 ish. And that's never going to change it. Apparently, I like it though many times because I can if I have things to do, I can get everything accomplished and be done. I'm full of energy and that this and that, but it also makes for a long day, like if you're waiting for something, like I'm waiting for the Cleveland Browns playing the Pittsburgh Steelers today at noon. So when you're up at 3:30, I got 8.5 hours before kickoff. That's crazy. But I had a horrible day yesterday, as you two already know. We were discussing before. Losing my television, my microwave, and my George Foreman grill all in one day, and within just a few hours of each other, and losing the microwave and the Foreman grill simultaneously. Ugh.
Well, you're not supposed to put the grill in the microwave, Tony.
Yeah, I tried. I learned the hard way, but yeah, that was just I don't know. I love the Foreman grill, but it's top heavy. The design is poor. And it literally tipped backwards, and because it's so the lid, I can't keep it on a counter. I have to put it on a portable rack or whatever you want to call it. And it just tipped over backwards, man. And the food was done. I mean, I was opening up the lid, so I couldn't grab it because I would have burned my hands. And that was it. So, yeah, that kind of stinks. And then, the microwave I wasn't, I guess, paying attention and something caught fire in there. I guess I cooked it too long. But the television I just bought last July, so 15 months ago. Of course, it's out of warranty by 3 months. I talked to Sharp yesterday, and yeah, it's the main video board. I'm just not going to deal with it. I'm just going to be without television in that room. That's just things happen. But
So how soon after the TV broke did all the other stuff break?
okay, so my mom was watching the TV in the morning. The caretaker came over at 9 and took her to wherever she had to go to do things. My mom came back around 12, tried to put the TV on at 12:30. She comes into my room saying the batteries are dead for the remote. I said, that's not possible. These are all new batteries. So, I know a little bit about electronics. So I went out there and I saw, oh, this isn't good. So I unplugged it. I did basically everything that ultimately Sharp, when I contacted them, wanted me to do. And it was to no avail. But I called Sharp anyway. And as I figured, it's pretty much to no avail. So let's say the TV went out about 12:30 and the rest of my world collapsed around 4. So, and my buddy happened to call me at the same time that lives in Chicago, and he's telling me, come on, let's get in your car. Come on out. I said, are you crazy? The way my day's going today, I'm not leaving this house. I had enough bad luck for one day. But I guess, I'm like a lot of athletes, we have our superstitions. Baseball players, for one, have a lot of superstitions. I mean, I'm not a baseball player per se, but I just I have superstitions and things, and I believe sometimes in bad luck. And I believe that I'm a living testament to bad luck. So yeah, when those days happen, I just kind of try to let them pass on by. But anyway, we're supposed to have a very special guest. We had him before we started this podcast, which was, we had him on a few minutes ago, and there's some technical glitches on his end. So he's trying to go to a different location. So he will be joining us mid-show. And so if he logs on and there's some technical glitches still, or we're trying to get him, or Joe's trying to get him on smoothly, just bear with us. These are all a work in progress. We had our previous guest, where we had him on, we had everything set up. Things were going smoothly. He was working from his home on a computer, whereas our special guest today is using off of his phone, which I guess can be a little different. But I did receive an email the other day from someone who is really enjoying our podcasts. And he's also working with his young son as well in this, and they enjoy it. And we got to keep it going, try to keep it as interesting as possible without going too off the rails. Tomorrow's another gloomy day for me. October 19th is another one of those days that goes in the annals of, bad times or bad luck, or however you want to do it. My grandfather that raised me died on October 19th. And then a year to the day, the following October 19th, I was getting dressed and ready to go to the cemetery to pay a visit. And I get a phone call from Pennsylvania that my dad's father died. So 1 year to the day. So instead of me hitting the cemetery, I had to hop in a car from Cleveland and, drive to Pennsylvania. So, but the big month is coming up. December is when, so many people I know passed away in the month of September, or in the month of December. I'd have to think, but it's probably 8 or 9 off the top of my head. And my dog and my dad both died on the same day in December, but 7 years apart. So yeah, there's a lot of numerical things, a lot of coincidences here, with me, or whatever you want to look at it. Yeah. But, and I am a firm believer in the number 13 as a jinx. I was born on the 13th. I've had bad luck my whole life. My ex-wife insisted that we get married on the 13th. I said, nope, it's going to be bad. And it sure was. My dad dies on the 13th. My dog dies on the 13th. I'm sure that I could think of somebody else that passed away on the 13th as well that I know, but
Why did she want to get married on the 13th?
just, I don't know. She just felt that was going to be it was a Saturday. So it wasn't like it was during the week. She may have thought that was going to be a lucky number, but it wasn't. And I told her that. I said, this is not a good thing. This is not a good omen. Please don't do this. But you can't win sometimes. And yeah, it just wasn't, 13 has never been my lucky. That's just a number I try to avoid. I do. And we all have our little things, I mean, I'm sure everyone has their little quirks. Some might find this funny, but yeah, I don't, and I'm not a numerological guy. I'm not into that. I'm really not into, horoscopes. I mean, I'll read them just for entertainment purposes, but, and I'm sure it's just the way it is. It just works out that way, that 13 is what it, whatever. But, yeah, there's just, for me, it's just, it's always been something. And you were saying that you kind of believe in bad luck and curses as well, right, Nico?
I don't know if I believe in bad luck. I definitely believe in curses. And like I was telling you, I feel like I was on job sites that were just totally cursed. Like the one job I was telling you about, we first get started, we use the concrete saw, instantly it breaks. So then we use the breaker on the Bobcat because we didn't have anything to cut because the saw was broke. Instantly, the Bobcat breaks. Then we go resort to the last resort, which is a sledgehammer, and the sledgehammer handle snaps. I don't think that's a coincidence. All these things happen like within the first hour of the day. I was on another job site, and there was a series of events that was just going wrong on this job. And the foreman, he got reprimanded and he was like really nervous about anything else going wrong. And he had a big talk with us in the morning. And he's like, listen, guys, we had a partner saw that was stolen. We had a Hilti gun that was stolen and some other things that went wrong. He's like, if one more thing happens, I'm getting fired. He's like, nothing can go missing from this job. Not one thing. So we're like, all right. So we had to, again, make some concrete cuts before we get started. And this was probably in February. So it was like 15 degrees in the morning. And I get the concrete saw started because it was super cold. So it wouldn't start up. I get it started. I had to let it run for a while just to heat up. So I just let it idle. I left it for like maybe 15, 20 minutes, just let it idle. And I was doing something. And then I hear this guy on the street. He says, hey, hey, hey. And he's pointing to the saw. And I look at the saw. I've never seen anything like it. The concrete saw just bursted into flames, like just spontaneous combustion. And it just like enveloped and completely consumed it within minutes. And I went to the fire hydrant to get some water. The fire hydrant was disabled, and that was the only one on the block. So I had nothing to really put out the fire. And within, I'd say 5 minutes, the thing was like a skeleton. So my foreman pulls up. He was down the block. He pulls up with his truck and he sees this thing in flames, and it's a skeleton.
Oh.
And after he just had that talk about, all this stuff going wrong on the job, and he just looks up at the sky and raises his hands and he's like, why? He screams, no, this can't be happening. And he throws down his jacket and starts screaming. Oh man, it was a sight. I wish I could have had that on film, and I felt terrible. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, a concrete saw cannot just burst into flames by itself, especially in 15-degree weather. It's like supernatural.
Well, and your boss, you get frustrated, you get panic stricken because, like you said, he was worried that he was going to get fired, and especially fired for something that's completely out of his control. Um, you know, I would hope he didn't get fired. Did he get
Oh,
fired?
he didn't get fired, but he was very close to it. I
Well,
mean, before that even happened.
oh,
So, but they found that it wasn't his fault with that saw, so they couldn't fire him for that. But I mean, he was on the edge of getting fired before this happened.
well, it's just tension or a stress, makes everything worse, and that's what we talk about street fighting, or even competition. I watched something yesterday, uh, to kind of mellow out, and I watched an old pool match from, I believe it was 2014. It was, or 2015. Regardless, it doesn't matter. But could even been a different time. But it was Battle of the Sexes, pretty much. Mike Siegel was one of the all-time greats against Laurie John Jones, who is one of the greatest, if women shooters of all time. And it was pretty lopsided, but several, I think at least twice, they were interviewing Laurie during the competition, during the match, and she used the expression, "I'm tight as a drum. I'm tight as a drum." She was just so worked up. She was so nervous. Um, she couldn't get her groove on. Okay. And that's a classic example of what I talk about when it comes to street fighting, self defense, or really anything. But our focus is on self defense. You can't be working against yourself, you know, and that's a classic, the example yesterday when I finally get invited to go see a friend, even if it was half-hearted invitation, he probably didn't really mean it. Um, I wasn't about to go because, my mind, I needed to, de-stress a little bit. Um, and, you know, I wouldn't have had a good time because just with me, I just sometimes need things to pass. So learning to control it, and that's exactly what I did. I had to control the situation. I just walked away. I let the the grill cool off. Then I came back, cleaned it up, picked up the pieces, and switch moods. So the mind controls it all. It's really, it's really a trigger. I'm not sitting here saying that you can cure yourself from ailments, perhaps. Maybe you can to a degree, or at least you can control your reactions to it. So, and it's also good, isn't it, guys, when bad things happen? I mean, isn't it funny, like when something good happens, right? Probably 99% of the people you care about and are friendly to you will join along in the celebration. They'll be on your side. They'll be celebrating along with you. 99%, right? But do you ever notice when things go really bad, um, you don't have 99% of the people who are sympathizing with you or on your side. Normally you get a large percentage of people who are going to try to psychoanalyze that, right? And maybe in their twisted way, try to make you feel better when in essence all they're doing really is making matters worse. Sometimes it's just best to say, my God, you are having a horrible, whatever happened to you, that is absolutely horrible. I can't believe it. I feel so bad, but boy, you're handling it, probably better than I would, as opposed to, well, don't let it get to you, or, some, ridiculous statement like that. One thing I learned when I was studying REBT, rational emotive behavioral therapy, is mad, glad, sad, scad. Okay. You could be mad, you could be glad, you could be sad, you could be scared. Those are normal functions. If you don't have those functions, you're dysfunctional. Okay. So it's okay to be mad or sad or glad. You don't want your madness to turn into rage, your sadness to turn into depression, your gladness to turn into euphoria, and your fear to become so compelling that you become phobic. Okay. So you want to kind of stay in the middle, and try to avoid, the great undulations that may come with your emotions. So uh having emotions is a normal part of not just human beings. I mean, the animal kingdom has emotions as well. So, these are things to bear in mind. So, equating it again to the street fight, if you were to start to get nervous when things are going down, that's fine. But that's where you have to start working on yourself to just say, calm down. Don't let it get to the point where you start to tremble, or, you cower, or whatever. Um, or you get so angry that you go into a blind rage and you can't focus. But don't get upset with yourself in the aftermath that you got mad, or that you did get a little nervous, or, whatever the label is you want to put on yourself. Um, and it's, the motto that I learned with the RABT is, if you change the way you think, you'll change the way you feel. And while that's very easy to say, it's obviously very difficult to put into practice. And it's something that you have to actively, continuously work on. And, you know, that's my thoughts and feelings on it, and you are, of course, allowed to mourn. And I don't necessarily just mean over death, but if you lost your job or you're having issues at home, of whatever sort, you are allowed to, quote unquote, mourn that. You can get away from it all, escape for a little while, try to get your head. You got to do what you can do to clear your thoughts. As long as whatever it is you're doing isn't going to compound, the problem, which, happens in a lot of scenarios. Um, but yeah, it just, today I'm looking for a pretty relaxing day. Hopefully the Browns will win. The Browns against the Steelers are like the Bears and the Packers. It's a huge rivalry. I would venture to say it's the biggest rivalry in the AFC. A lot of history to it. Two blue collar Rust Belt cities. Of course, it's changed through the years with Cleveland moving to Baltimore, and of course now the Ravens are actually a rival as well, but they don't have the history there, that the Steelers do. And My dad and I've, he's all, well, he's passed away, but he was from Pennsylvania. My one cousins, my one cousin in particular that I'm close to, not only is she in Pennsylvania, she's a rabid Steeler fan. Okay. So, I feel sorry for her there, but, she's been coming out on the winning side for the last several centuries, it seems, between the Steelers and the Browns. So today's a big game. I like to be able to catch the game, watch the game. What are your plans today, Joe Zeppi?
I got a family coming over, so my daughter's in the city right now. So once a week she'll come on out with her boyfriend, and we'll hang out and like get some food or watch movies. We've been doing since it's October. We've been doing like some of the classic horror movies. So like last Sunday we did like a double feature of the original Frankenstein and then the Hammer Frankenstein from the 50s. And I think we're going to do Dracula this Sunday. So I always look forward to that. As a kid growing up, I always used to watch monster movies. They always had like Creature Feature or Son of Svengoolie, like, so as a kid, I was just kind of always up late playing in front of the television. I always had some kind of either like a war movie or a monster movie on in the background. And so it's kind of a lot of nostalgia for me. So like I said, just doing seasonal kind of stuff. I worked out yesterday a little bit, so I might take it a little bit easy today. Obviously we'll be working on the podcast here some. But yeah, that's it. And then tomorrow I actually start class again. So I'm kind of got some dread going on for that. So it's a Monday, Wednesday night kind of a thing. It's work related stuff, but it's going to be busy. So my schedule's going to pick up for the next several weeks. But that's kind of what fall is to me. It's like summer's over, fun's over. It's time to kind of knuckle back down and take care of business a little bit. So
Well, you mentioned Svengoolie, so that's a Cleveland connection. Svengoolie is a copy or a knockoff of a guy in Cleveland, Ernie Anderson, was on local Cleveland television, and he created the Ghoul. Okay, Ghoulardi actually is what he was. He was Ghoulardi, and he did the cheesy movies, and he would do the skits in between and so on. And then Ghoulardi left Cleveland for greener pastures out in California, and he eventually became like a voiceover actor and worked for ABC, and he used to do the intro for the Love Boat. It's the Love Boat. Well, that was all Ernie Anderson out of Cleveland, and then subsequently, Cleveland had a guy who I guess got Ghoulardi's okay, and did a character same with the monster movies and the B movies called the Ghoul. Okay. And as a matter of fact, I think he may have passed away a couple of years ago. And then from there, Svengoolie latched onto that kind of thing. But the whole kit and caboodle actually started in Cleveland. Cleveland has a very interesting history. People look at Cleveland now and how it is, but Cleveland wasn't always like that. Cleveland was, very innovative at times. They had like the very first morning talk show of any note, period. All these shows you see now, Good Morning America and, whatever, The View, whatever they are, it all started in Cleveland with a television program called The Morning Exchange. And, it was a sit down format. They would do a little bit of local topics, and they'd have guests on and so on. And Cleveland was also one of the first towns or cities, I guess, to have like dedicated children's programming as well. So Cleveland was the largest city between New York and Chicago. And ironically, when the Terminal Tower was built in Cleveland, I believe construction started in 1928 and finished in 1930. It was the second tallest building in the world in 1930. Now, keep that in perspective, and that'll tell you how thriving of a city Cleveland was. That 90 years ago, the second tallest building in the world was built there. And then for years, it was the tallest building in North America outside of New York. It wasn't passed and surpassed, I think, until 64 or 65. So, Cleveland, you used to be obviously a happening town. And, I still love the city, the people of Cleveland. And I always root for better days for the town. So but Pittsburgh, I'll give it credit. Pittsburgh was another Rust Belt steel city that, got decimated when the steel industry pretty much collapsed. But yet Pittsburgh seemed to reinvent itself quite well. And, Cleveland, it kind of didn't, although Cleveland is a worldwide leader in medical and arts. They have, what is generally acknowledged as the premier symphony orchestra of the world, Cleveland Symphony Orchestra. And of course, the legendary Cleveland Clinic, which year after year after year is the greatest hospital in America for heart, especially, and it is always in the top 3 to 5 is greatest hospitals in the country, even currently. So Cleveland has a lot of things going for it, and frankly, the richest man that ever lived, was John D. Rockefeller, arguably outside of royalty. And, he made his fortune right around Cleveland. They have parks named after him. And, he was, everybody should know who John D. Rockefeller was in the late 1800s. So pretty interesting stuff about Cleveland. And I'm sure there's plenty more info, but I wasn't prepared to talk about. This is just stuff that I remember of Cleveland. But anyway, got into an interesting well, not so much got into an interesting conversation, but I kind of got reeled in, nothing negative, but, talking about self-defense with someone the other day. Ironically, it was a woman who's, interested in that stuff and is trained somewhat in that stuff. And, she was like, everything I've done, she said, has been pretty much role playing, play acting, because she's, from around here, never, witnessed anything dangerous. And she kind of insulates, I guess she's insulated from things that happen in the city. And even if you watch the news, the local Chicago news, you really don't get a handle for it. It's, it's not like when it was 9/11 and you see the planes impacting and you see all of this smoke and everything and the fire, and it kind of, oh my goodness. You don't really get that kind of drama on local news. And she asked me directly, how can what's the best way to simulate that? I says, well, take the word simulate out of it. If you're serious about it and you want to really know what it's like, you actually have to put yourself in that position. Maybe not be the victim, so to speak. I hate that word victim, but you've got to be around those environments for a length of time, and let it really sink in what can happen. It's an eye opener, but she was actually trying to pin me down, and and she wanted a definitive, should I go, or should I do this or not do this? And I'm like, if you have no desire to live in a high crime area, you don't really, what's the point of putting yourself, if you decide to put yourself in any risk? Why? If you're going to, like me, why would I study Greek, for example, when I have zero plans of ever moving or even visiting Greece, right? I'm just using that as an example. It's not an attack on Greece. I would love to go see the country, but I'm not going to probably do it. So yeah, if you're not in that culture, it's better safe than sorry, especially nowadays. And you can also get yourself in some trouble. Like, why are you here? Why did you come here? What are you looking for, kind of thing. So like with you now, Nico, you'll be moving further away from hotspot. Doesn't mean you're safe, but you'll run into a different kind of, let's say violence, or whatever the correct term would be, antagonism. It's always there, It's just sometimes it's buried under different layers and different things trigger it.
Yeah, just a different set of circumstances.
Correct. So, but it was just interesting that it was charming to talk to someone who, she really has I mean, I didn't want to get too deep with her because I really don't know her. So I didn't want to probe as to, is there something that, maybe lurking that may have happened to her in the past. I didn't want to go down that road. It's not my business. But, I've said many times, I don't know if we've said it on this, I'm sure we said it on one of our previous podcasts, but I've said it through the years, to at least research online at this point in time, read uh, medical reports, read police reports, read newspaper accounts, local newspaper accounts of, the violent situation. If the newspaper account is in depth, talk to local law enforcement, talk to, a trauma nurse or maybe an ER doctor if you can schedule that, and learn as much about it as you can so you can kind of fluff off the not stereotypes. What's the word I'm looking for? The sensationalism or whatever. Just get to the facts. There's a lot of myths out there, and it's not devious. I mean, people make myths up about every subject probably known to man. Um, myth, 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 and you really need to get to the root of, okay, what's the actual truth here? And again, nobody's probably being deceitful. Sometimes, sure, they could be, but myths just grow. You know, you may tell a story to someone and they may not remember the exact adjectives that you're using, so they'll use their own, which may be more or less descriptive than yours. And then they tell someone and it gets passed along and so on and so on and so on. So all of a sudden it becomes very murky. Um, So yeah, it just caught me off guard, in a nice, pleasant way. I mean, well, I shouldn't even say it was pleasant, but it was, just it wasn't disruptive to me. It was just, something that I wasn't prepared to have. I wasn't expecting to talk to anybody about, the violent crime situation, with these residents. Um, he- to ask you a question, Nico. It seems to me that even though you've been in a mellow area for quite a few years, you still haven't lost your grip on, what South side of Chicago, Berwyn, Cicero area meant growing up because you've talked about it in depth before. So you're kind of still holding on to those memories, correct?
I am, but it's like I asked you, on one of the other podcasts. I just feel like being out in the really nice neighborhood for so long, you really let your guard down, and I feel like that with myself. I
Well,
kind of let my guard down. I'm not really on edge. I'm kind of, just I guess you could say very comfortable, and I think comfort could be a bad thing.
yeah, I get it. That's why I go to Chicago quite regularly to keep those juices flowing, so to speak, and I don't just drive through, I get out, I park the car, I get out, I walk, I go to the stores, and, I'm on high alert, yeah, it does me well, but I don't know that necessarily that what works for me works for someone else. We're all different. We're all unique. But yeah, I have to keep in touch with that. But with the way my personal life is currently with, the situation here with, my mom's health situation and everything in chaos, I have a different kind of stress level. I have a different kind of awareness that I didn't have, you know, all my life, growing up. It's a whole different set of challenges, I guess you would say. Um, yeah, I do believe that you and I and Joe, the way we are, and many others out there that watch or listen to these podcasts, we have a responsibility, to I mean, it's not a game. Okay. Survival, defending your family and loved ones. It's not a game. And it's a commitment on our part uh, to be able to keep our skills or at least keep our wits about us and pass down our knowledge to your, if you have a wife, to your children, and I don't necessarily even mean our physical abilities, but our mental abilities, like scenario training, and try to sit down and tell them stories that happened to you and how you saw the story develop, how you saw it play out, and what the epilogue was of the story, and let these people live vicariously through you, make an interesting story out of it, so you can impart your experiences to them. Joe's kids, one took off to California, one to Boston. She's back. One is in Thailand. These are kids that are lost. They're gone. They're away from home. Probably no friends until you make friends, and so on. And that's an isolation. They need to be prepared to deal with scenarios, and give them advice. Uh, you know, and to the best that you can. You know, but doing nothing is certainly not to me an answer for that. But again, they have to be willing to learn. Otherwise, it's a waste of breath, right?
Well,
Absolutely.
that's the tricky thing is like I think all three of us grew up in the city, in varying degrees. I probably had the safest area, but still, the threat of violence was there routinely enough to kind of motivate you, because training is hard, especially if you're training right. It's not something that you should look forward to necessarily. Like I think you've said it before, you should dread your training a little bit. Um, so it's, proper training can be very tough. And, I mean, in some ways, fortunately, like with my kids, you mentioned them. I mean, we've been fortunate enough to really raise them in an environment where I don't think they've ever really been that exposed to it. Now, my son loves going into the city, so he's there with his friends kind of routinely. But again, depending which neighborhood you could go on, it could be completely safe. I mean, you kind of go through areas that aren't bad or that are bad, but you can still be pretty isolated from danger. But it is hard to make it real to inspire them to train. I think that's been one of the difficulties of me as a dad is, like I want them to be safe and I want them to do it. And, but, it is hard to find that inspiration for them to say, hey, let's do this really tough training, or this could be like emotionally difficult, but it's important that you do it. It's almost like tougher than getting to get to do homework sometimes. If you don't, I mean, intellectually, you may understand that you need it, but I think emotionally, you need to feel the need to do it too, on some level.
Well, you're correct. And uh, those of us that were raised in the hood, so to speak, um, we don't have, I don't want to use the term snobbishness, but we realize that, other people, let's say, that didn't live in that area or that kind of environment, they'll never get it. Okay. You can't. Okay. It's part of our life. Just like conversely, we'll never really get what it's like to live a lavish lifestyle, growing up or whatever, silver spoon kind of thing. And yeah, it's just something that, I don't, I mean, believe me, I've said it a million times before. If I could have been, raised in a very nice suburb, very safe. Yeah, I would have loved that, didn't happen. So there's no point living in the past. However, hey, I'm a firm believer that I know from all of us that were in that area, those that stayed, um, we had a unique take on things that other people from other areas, we could acknowledge their existence, but we could say, no, man, you don't know. You think you do, you don't. You may have seen something once, you may have seen something twice, but we see things once or twice, sometimes in a day, certainly in a week, and compound that by a month, by years, it starts to become, a ridiculous amount of times. And it leaves a trauma but I never knew anything else. That's the thing. It wasn't like I moved to that neighborhood when I was like 20. I was raised there, I was born there. I never knew anything else. So to me, it was normal. And it wasn't until I started to get, well, maybe high school when I started to interact with kids from different, like totally different parts of Cleveland, that I realized, wow, there's another world out there besides television. I think we talked about this last week or the week before, how I could never um, hook up with the Brady Bunch and shows like that. I could never get it. I'm like, wow, that certainly doesn't exist around here. Um, so yeah, it's for sure left the mark on me. I regret, Joe, that you and I never made the trip to Cleveland. We still have time, but it's like, the house that I was raised in is already torn down. They tore it down this year or whatever. So there's things are dying there because the neighborhood is historically bad. That if you want to make a trip and see exactly things as they were in my time, we can't play around and wait. We got to make that trip before more things are gone for good. And Lord knows what's gone. I'm not in Cleveland now, so I don't. There could be other things when I get there. I can say, "Hey, let's go here," and then it's gone. You know, and that's actually even happening here in Chicago now. And has been pre-COVID. Pre-COVID, places gone, torn down. You know, uh, never. Just a bitter memory now. It's sad. So I'm noticing a lot of that. More so than when I was younger, where there was buildings that stood for 70 years, let's say, abandoned maybe, um, but not demolished or torn down. There's remnants of its past. Now it just seems like, I don't know if it's a money thing where people are trying to just tear buildings down for the land and rebuild and reconstruct. But the landscape is changing. And if it's happening in Cleveland and it's happening in Chicago, it's probably happening everywhere in the listening audience. And that's it's part of our history. And someone that I trained years ago from another country came over and said, he didn't say this as an insult. He just said, America is a disposable country, where we have more relics, we have older buildings and homes where, in general than a lot of America does. And of course, America's big. And I don't think this person was insinuating every inch of America is brand new, but yeah, I mean, I get his point that we have a turnover rate over here that's pretty high. As far as once something is done with its usefulness, let's just discard it. But I know again too. I see it in Chicago. I drive down neighborhoods. I see new construction in neighborhoods. Okay, residential neighborhoods, houses torn down and three flats being built. It's all about profit. You know. So anyway, yeah, I hope we do make it to Cleveland, even if it's for a long weekend or something like that. Just so you could you went to Philadelphia and everything, so why not go to Cleveland? I mean, I'm your personal tour guide, and I mean, I'll show you all around. And like I say, there's a lot of interesting history. Maybe not like Philadelphia that goes all the way back to Ben Franklin and all that stuff, but you know, there's there's certainly things that I can show you, but
No,
got
that would be awesome. I love exploring new urban environments. I love traveling like that, and especially someone who has a passion for the place. Like when we were in Philly, I should give a plug. This guy, we did a walking tour there. It was bow tie tours, right? Like by Independence Hall. But this guy who did the tour was a middle school teacher, and he had such a passion for American history and for Philadelphia history that he just brought it alive. So having someone who can go with you and can show you the places and kind of just talk through it is really priceless. It's really the difference between just kind of having a whole home experience and having a really enlivening and enriching experience. So yeah, I look forward to that. We should do it this spring for sure. I think that would be a great trip.
oh,
Um,
They have a Roman burger by Mr. Heroes and a slime and corned beef, world's best, and a chili dog, uh, and whatever else. If Royal Pizza's still there and the Korean family still owns it, which I would highly doubt, we'd get a Royal Pizza too. Um, just yeah, I would like to do it. And then I could show you just things, like I said, before it's too late, before everything is gone, or before, whatever. But yeah, also the other thing that I always found, I was an explorer by nature, okay, because of the neighborhood. We talked about this, where I could, I would go to the downtown public library, and it was dangerous as a kid alone on public transportation, but I, nobody gave it two shits to stop me. I wasn't, I didn't have the most loving family upbringing, so I would take the bus, and sometimes things would be, you know, risky. But Cleveland had, I believe it was the third or the fifth largest library. If it wasn't in the country, it may have been in the world, but it's a huge library. It was, I mean, I still basically live there. Book after book after book I would check out, and or I would just stay in there and read microfilm or microfiche, and just, you know, I would escape Cleveland via books and or magazines. And it was really, I lost myself in books. I was a voracious reader as a child, and as a young adult. Um, Somewhere along the way, maybe in my later 20s when life caught up to me, I probably slowed down on the reading, but I always had books. I always had something to read, and some of them were technical manuals, electronics. I was reading factual, historical things as well, but not mostly that. But now and then my mind would go to, I used to read these Hitchcock presents The Three Investigators, Jupiter Jones, Pete Crenshaw, and Bob Andrews. And there were just three kids that, took it upon themselves to be private investigators. And they had a series of books like Andy Hardy. I got three or four of them. They're very expensive. They're like collector's books now. I mean, if you wanted to get the whole series, it probably cost you $1,000. But I'm pretty sure I read almost every book, unless more came out since I was, a teenager. But it, it was crime related, of course. As I said, there are three investigators. Of course, they weren't investigating violent crimes like my neighborhood, but that always interested me, because of living in crime. If I could learn some tips or tricks and things like that, and then I remember getting a book on con games and scams, how to protect yourself from that stuff, because there was a lot of that going on. Three card money and friggin' um, pickpockets and just non-violent crime, but crime nonetheless in and around the area, pitch penny scams and just scams in general. Um, so it opened up my mind, you know, made me a very critical thinker, maybe to the point of being a cynical thinker. And that's, I witness that now in this day and age, especially, there's not a lot of critical thinking. Okay. There's just people taking a fantastic story, conspiracy theory or whatever, and just absorbing it without truly analyzing it and running with it. And I don't mean that necessarily even in a political way. I'm just saying in general. Um, and I think people need to stop and be critical. And even guys who are on the cusp of the quasi criminal element that think they know things. I was reading recently, like this week, a few days ago, um, they're clueless too. And that was in regards to a famous pool dump, where, they're arguing, did the players dump, or did they just have bad rolls and make bad shots? And then they're trying to justify exactly, wow, there's no way he could have dumped. It would have been a little more obvious, blah, blah, blah. Well, no, uh, a con or like a card cheat, a mechanic or a great pool player will take you and you'll never know it. That's the thing. you'll never have the concrete proof. They're too good. Um, if you ever watched a card manipulator, a card mechanic do his thing, even after they tell you what they're going to do, it should be imperceptible to you. Now you add in the fact that under the heat, they're not going to let you know. They're certainly not going to draw your attention to it. It's going to be a bunch of distraction and you're never going to get it. Okay. You'll never catch it. And, I discussed this once years ago on one of my Facebook things when spring was coming or summer was coming. I warned all of you guys that wanted to go downtown to all the festivals and this and that, to watch out for certain scams. Watch out for the pickpockets, especially because they'll pick you clean. You will never know you were picked clean. I mean, these guys are absolute professionals at it. So there are professional street fighters out there. There are people that this is what they like to do, and they will goad you professionally at a high level. They will trick you and ensnare you into a situation where you're lured into this street fight, and you never probably saw it coming. And it's far too deep for me to get into because there's so many different kind of examples. But trust me, there are people out there that are, ready to take it to the next level, not just con you, but beat it out of you, get what they want physically, with physical harm. And they're pros at it. And you have to watch out for that. And now that there's cameras and there's this or that, it isn't, it doesn't sway them to stop. I don't think it's a deterrent in most instances. Maybe it's a pathological thing with them. I don't know, but it's a deep subject, man. But there's a hidden underbelly to the world that a lot of people aren't just not aware of. I think they have a passing idea, but they don't want to accept that it could be out there, or they want to run away from it and say, well, I'm in a nice neighborhood. So even if all that horrible underbelly does exist, it doesn't exist here. It exists in a land far, far away. Well, I don't, it's too late for me to try. I can't live like that because I was already exposed to it. So I know it's there. It's not a wives' tale. It's not an urban myth with me. We've lived through it. Nico, to a degree, has lived through it. So we know it's there. It's just a matter of, are we going to run into it personally today?
It's like a false sense of security.
It is for many people. It is a false sense of security. And only people who have really gotten to know me, I mean, truly, deeply gotten to know me, they change. They're like, oh my goodness, I did not know this stuff kind of existed. I never knew it, and then they're like, I didn't know you personally went through it and this and that. But yeah, it is a false sense of security. And even once you expose it to them and tell them it, it's no different than describing the best meal you've ever eaten in your life. You could make them, mouth water. Okay. You could really get them all keyed up, but yet they still really don't know what it tastes like unless they had it. Same with this stuff. We could tell them until we're blue in the face, and they can believe it, they can accept it, they can acknowledge it, but they'll never feel it until it happens, until they see it and are exposed to it. And I believe more than once, unless it's so drastic that once is all it takes. But as I'm getting older now, and I'm seeing a shift in people, I'm seeing the violence that people are talking about now as a very detached violence. It's an us against them mentality, when really the majority of violence is still us versus us. It's not an us versus them where you can identify generally your enemy or create an enemy. It's thrust on you. And yeah, it's a whole different thing. There's a detachment I see, you know, and there's so many folks that now, like I said, we talked about once about concealed carry or open carry or this or that. I'll shoot somebody, blah, blah, blah. And, I don't know how many people are prepared for that. I don't mean technically they may have the ability to pull the trigger and shoot, but, living with the aftermath of that, of what you did. And I'm sure there's instances, of course, when it's blatantly justified, but in a case of, was it or wasn't it, you've got to live with that, not just the criminal court system, but, your own psyche, your own conscience. And, believe me, in all these street scenarios that I've been in, I've never felt good about any of them. Not any of them. Okay. Uh, I just wish they didn't happen. I don't want to come on 20, 30 years, 10 years, 5 years later and, sit back with pride. No, I wish they never happened. These are memories that, haunt me. Okay. And anyone who's been in violent crime situations, especially more than once, um, you don't come out of it unscathed. It's plays a game with you. And, I work hard at not letting it consume me. Right. Uh, and in many ways I fail because everyone who knows me, and again, those who really, really know me, one of the first things they always say is, man, you're hyper alert. I'm always looking around where if we go out in public, I'm always making sure I can see everything. Right. That's part of this. I, I can't be oblivious unless there's something really wrong with me that day. I'm not well or something, and I'm really out of it. But generally, I mean, I'm on the ball. And I believe more people, need to be like that, but they have to be vigilant, but not a vigilante. You can't rush to judgment. You just have to be aware, and you have to see it enough times to know that not every situation you think is maybe potentially bad is going to play out that way. It could just be wrong signals or you know things work out. You can't all of a sudden rush to judgment and um, exacerbate a situation or inflame something or actually create something out of thin air, because of your, you know, misperceptions. Um, and that happens to all of us, even in regular, day-to-day life. A girl smiles at you, you think, oh, maybe she likes me. Maybe this has happened to you guys. You start to talk to her and all of a sudden you find out, oh, she really has no interest in you. She's just smiling because she's friendly, right? So in that case, it turns out harmless. But you know, I I'm cautious. Let's put it that way. You know, and I will be alert. But I think because of me and others that have been through this, we can get the signals pretty good, and we know when it's time to act on it. Um, but yeah, outside of that, guys, I'm of the thing of let's just try in this day and age. Let's just try to have enjoyment. Let's try to have fun. I think about like my grandparents' age. They came from the Great Depression and then World War II, and that's all doom and gloom for 20 years, right? Uh, of just terribleness in this country, and yet they they managed to thrive. Many of them after World War II. The economy came around, suburbs were starting to grow, interstates. They traveled, they did this, they did that. Not everyone, but many of them put the past behind them. I mean, sure, there was a lot of them that never trust banks again, and were very leery of all of that, but they still tried to move forward. And I knew a lot of World War One people that they lived through the Depression. They lived through two wars: World War One, World War Two, and same thing. They had families. They took vacations. They tried to go on with life in a charming and maybe at times a romantic way. And I think that's something that we need to try to do right now. and I'm guilty of not doing it enough. So our guest is running late, so that's why I didn't want to mention any names. Only one person that I know of knows this, of who was supposed, outside of you guys, of who was supposed to be here, but hopefully he'll still be coming on.
He'll be on just in time to say goodbye.
Well, yeah, I may be one of those guys that has to bust, like I told you, bust out of here earlier than normal, but we still got another half hour of the show. Nico, are you more now a Indianapolis Colt fan, or do you still pull for the Bears? What do you do?
I don't even watch football. Not really a sports fan.
Well, Joe, you're a Bears fan or no?
Oh yeah, I'm a Bears fan. I grew up with, although I don't watch that frequently anymore, just the kind of the way my TV's set up. I tend to stream stuff more, so I'm not watching, which I regret because I think I'm missing even not just football, but like, basketball and stuff. We've got one of the all-time greats, LeBron James, playing, and I'm not spending a lot of time just trying to watch him play while he's here. I just watched, they've got this Michael Jordan documentary now that's out. You can watch it on Netflix. But I kind of regret not watching more games when I was, when I was a kid, when he was active, because, those players like that don't come along very often, and it is, seeing it live, you can watch replays and stuff of athletes, but, you talk about like kind of appreciating the moment and being there. That's the same thing kind of with the sports, is that, it's kind of a moment. If you're not, if it's your thing, you should make an effort to kind of try and enjoy it while you can. These players aren't here forever. Look at like Kobe, just gone. Not granted that he was retired, right? So, but still, I mean, you don't know what, who's going to be there or still playing, or. But yeah, to answer your question, definitely a Bears fan. I think just because I'm kind of like a Chicago fan in general. So, I'm just kind of, that's my allegiance.
You should be. I mean, you were born and raised in the city. You know, I'm, I don't want to speak for anybody else. That, well, it doesn't really matter, but a lot of us were very highly tainted by the Bears with that Super Bowl shuffle jazz in 1985, and it just kind of, rubbed us the wrong way into our knowledge. That was the first time any team showed that kind of arrogance to, they weren't even in the Super Bowl yet, and they're making videos about it. And granted, they backed it up, they won, but you know, yeah, that wasn't, it's kind of difficult. I'll probably, uh, you know, I, I'll probably never be a Bears fan unless somehow I end up with a personal connection. I mean, I enjoy football. I mean, I went to the, this Bears game and all that, but, my allegiance will always be to Cleveland across the board, baseball, basketball, and football. And that's, and there's quite a few Cleveland fans in the city. There's bars in Chicago that are Cleveland bars. There was one on Lincoln Avenue that, Johnny Lira, Vince, and I went to watch. I don't remember now if it was the Cavaliers. Yeah, I think it was during the week. So we wouldn't have went there to watch the Indians. It might have been a Cavs game or something like that. And of course, I was really the only Clevelander in there. A lot of these guys that were in there talking about Cleveland, they never even was, they were like from 70, 80, 90 miles outside of Cleveland, which is, farmlands and, whatever. But, and there was another one that was downtown near Viagra Triangle that was a Cleveland Browns bar, strictly Browns. I was only there once because going down to Rush Street and State in that area. Yeah, it's not a cheap day. You got to pay a lot for parking. You know how that goes. But yeah, I used to, there was one other joint that used to have like a NFL ticket, and they had like 20 different TVs, something like that, a lot. So I would go there on Sundays and ask to put the Browns game on. But for the most part, I've watched, more Bears football in my life than I have the Browns, because of living out Chicago for 30 years, whatever. I've been out here 33 years. Most places just have one or two TVs and they're glued, to the Bears. So, but my loyalties will never be with the Bears. It'll always be with the Browns. I mean, I wish them the best. The Bears. I don't have a problem with them. Let them win. But if they're playing Cleveland, of course, I'm pulling for the Browns. So,
The Super Bowl shuffle thing, it's a kind of like a callback to the thing we were talking about at the beginning of this podcast. And I wanted to kind of touch on and kind of back to the superstition thing, because obviously the counter argument to that, and I'm not saying, I mean, I actually have some superstitions myself and spiritual ideas, which I think are not to dis religion or spirituality. I think there's a connection there between the two, but kind of going back to the idea of positive or negative thinking. So, um, and this the kind of there's a line though, like where, like, let's say, if I what do you think? I guess my question is, if you're focused on like, oh, I'm having a terrible day, I'm breaking everything, that you can almost create a self-fulfilling prophecy, and that can kind of delve into your training or other things too. So, like, the Bears with the Super Bowl shuffle, yeah, it was kind of audacious, but at least in their minds, they're like, we're going to win this very early on. Like, they've got this positive mental attitude. I mean, granted, it was a hokey thing and everything, but, what are your feeling on how that can affect whether it's athletics or self-defense, as opposed to thinking that it's some external forces is causing it, or that it's something yourself, like I'm just a loser or I'm uncoordinated or whatever, as opposed to like a superstition. Do you get what I'm kind of asking?
Yeah, I do. So, well, in regards to the Super Bowl shuffle thing, it was very unsportsmanlike. It was very arrogant, and they're probably lucky that it was over a sporting event, because if some other team really wanted to be unsportsmanlike about it, they could have taken out Walter Payton. They could have taken out McMahon or whoever, meaning injuring them. Okay. And thankfully the rest of the league, didn't go down that route. In our personal life, I don't want to say a self-fulfilling prophecy, but yes, you can beat yourself up. Like I was saying about the street fighting, don't work against yourself. A little humility goes a long way, but you have to have pride in what you're doing. Pride is that's a buzzword. A lot of Christians are like, oh, prideful person and so on, and they tend to not get it. You must have pride in what you're doing, no matter what it is. You may not have to think you're the greatest, but you are putting your best effort into it. Without pride, we're going to get junk. So there are times when, yes, whatever it is, neurologically that day, let's say you're nervous, you're shaking or something, and you're dropping things and this and that. It could just be one of those things. Just today's not your day. Okay. So if that's the case, you just get through it, calm down, and move on. But you're talking directly about these. I've seen it play out in other people when they were in regards to me in my personal life. And Kevin got, remember, that got killed. He would see it, and he would try to tell some of these people, he would say they can't stand prosperity. That was his famous line. These, such and such can't stand prosperity, because when things are going good, they're looking for trouble. They're looking for the bottom to fall out, and therefore they will create that. They will make they won't make it happen, either by their insecurity or suspicions or just straight out sabotage. And they'll go through the rest of their life not realizing they did it, because you become in denial. And all of us are probably guilty of that in examples, but some people make that a way of life. It's just like, well, I'm not worthy of this. I'm not worthy of happiness. I'm not worthy of riches, or I'll never, or I'll this. Yeah, these are like negative mindsets that will not necessarily mystically plant make it happen, but it sets up chain reactions that you will sabotage yourself, like whatever it is. Let's say you're trying to set a personal record in the bench press. Well, I'll never lift as much as, let's say I think I'll never lift as much as Nico. Well, whether that's true or false, if I believe in myself that, I'm not going to reach deep down just to see how much I can lift and how close I can get to Nico, then it's going to be very easy for me to be swayed not to go to the gym today. or to cut my workout short because of something else. Because remember, I'll never bench as much as Nico. That's your mindset. So, in that regard, Joe and Nico, it can be damning to you. It could be completely damaging. And I don't believe that necessarily there's anything mystical or spiritual about it. It's just you now sabotaging yourself. Uh, and again, every one of us, probably everyone that you know, has done this, at one time or another. And many times you have somebody that'll pull you through it, and you'll get through it. Um, but yeah, if you just keep on with this negativity, it can be overwhelming. But now let me tell you something. I take positive thinking with a grain of salt too, because there's a lot of frauds in this positive thinking thing. I'm a realist. I'm a rational thinker. And sometimes it's rational for me to be positive. It's rational for me to be negative, because negativity can turn and blossom into a positive thing. If your roof's leaking, and you just want to, oh, it's no big deal. Let's put a positive spin on it. We get to it tomorrow. Could be too late. Okay. You gotta look at it rationally. You gotta say, oh boy, like yesterday, I had a bad day. There's no reason in spinning it positive. That's a waste of energy. Accept it for what it is. The TV broke, the microwave broke, the George Foreman grill broke. Those are facts. Now, I'm not sitting here falling to pieces over it. Just was one of those days. But some people will try to, oh, well, this is a good thing. Now you could get a better TV. No, it was a good TV. It was only a year and a half old. It just broke. Okay. It just went out. It is what it is. It's acceptance. So that's my take on it. Positive thinking can be positively bullshit. Okay. You're not going to polish a turd. I'm sorry to be gross, but that's the expression. It's still a turd. No matter how you try to spit shine it. I'd much rather be with someone who's a rational, critical thinker. And all of us who are in the self-defense position, where we are the protectors, we have to rationally think. And if all of our conclusions are this is a bad situation, ergo negative, fine, but don't fall to pieces. Do the RABT thing. Mad, glad, sad, scared. You can have those emotions, but don't let them become overwhelming where it cripples you emotionally. So, but I do know the spirituality thing, regardless of across the religions, because I think I read there's something like 4,200 different religions or something like that in this world. People will put a spiritual or mystical thing to it. That's their thing. Fine. It's not my business. Don't make yours my business. My business, I won't make yours. But however they justify or rationalize it, it still all boils down to us making the difference. No matter if you pray and feel you're getting something from God, you still have to internalize it, accept it, change it, and put it forward. If you think you're getting it from the universe, the universal laws, again, okay, boom, now it's in you, it's in your mind, wherever. It's now up to you to do it. So, regardless of the source of where you get your thoughts or your inspiration or your motivation, it boils down to us. I mean, that's just all there is to it. I want to bench more than Nico. I got to get in the gym. I can't read a book. I can't fantasize about Paul Anderson or, Ted Arcidi or somebody like that. I got to get in the gym and I got to lift, and then maybe I can bench more than the next guy. That's my answer.
So
You know,
Tony,
you're. Oh, go ahead. Don't.
go ahead. I was just interested to hear your take on dealing with nerves in either a street scenario or like a sports scenario, if it's the same or a different way of dealing with it.
Oh yeah. Well, there's two. Okay. I deal with it differently between sport and street, regardless of the sport. And I'll explain in detail. For me, it's not so much controlling the nerves as it is postponing the nerves. Okay. Uh, in a sporting event, unless I'm surrounded by jerk offs in my life, which I don't like to have horrible people like that. If I lose, like if I'm in a pool tournament or whatever it is I'm doing and I lose, then they're not going to rub it in for the rest of my life. Okay. It's just a temporary thing. In a street fight, yeah, I can lose, excuse me, I can lose my life. In a street fight, it should be quickly. It should be one of these scenarios that's over relatively, quick. To my knowledge, I've never participated in any sort of competition that was over that quickly. Maybe an arm wrestling thing, but generally, a pool game or a pool tournament or whatever, pool league that goes on and on. And that's where the delaying of the nerves comes into play. Make no mistake, when I guess maybe because of my training and because of my upbringing, and because I'm best at fighting more than any other skill I have. Uh, I don't. I just act, and then I get nervous after it's all over with. Okay, you have your adrenaline dump afterwards. Um, Whereas with other events, they don't stress me like nothing's life and death. Like shooting a game of pool for me in a pool league or a tournament is not life or death. So I do get a case of the yips, but I get the case of the yips, and I've said this before. I just said this recently to a friend of mine who's a good pool player. The teams that I was on, they put a lot of Tony, you got to do it, Tony, put this pressure on me. They make it worse than what it is. If it was just me, I'm fine. And I went to a pool tournament. I didn't tell anybody about it. I just went. Okay. And I ended up winning. I go to others, where everybody's surrounding me. Come on, you can do it. I don't like that. Okay. That just leave me alone. I don't need more pressure. So yeah, but it's all up here, Nico. Again, like I said before, and I'll say it again, you've got to detach yourself from it. Did you ever hear of these people who have like out of body experiences? They claim that they could see them, they can look down upon themselves and they know that they were in the operating room or they saw that they were dead and they're floating. This is almost how it has to become. You have to detach yourself mentally from the scenario. Okay. Like I've said before in a street fight, if you value your life and where you're worried about your wife and your kids and the this and your job and the blah, 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 you've lost already. You've put so much stress on yourself. Got to take all of that out of detach yourself from all of that shit. Just focus on the guy or the scenario, the guy or guys or whatever it is that you're dealing with. And the same thing with pool with me or whatever it is that I was competing in, other sports. I can't take it personal, and that's why right now I won't. There's several reasons why I won't play in a pool league, but mainly, and we've always won, but it just was no fun for me anymore. Okay, they make the pressure, where there shouldn't be any pressure. Okay, and my teammates are the ones who pretty much ruin it for me. Okay, because they're living. This means so much to them to win that I'm sucked now into their drama, so to speak, and it just ruins it for me because it's just too much pressure for no return. This is just a pool game. It's not life or death. So I tell everyone, just try to detach, get a good support group that will be there for you in defeat. Everybody's going to be your friend when you win. Everybody in the world wants to be with you. You need to be around those people that want to be with you when you're not winning, when you're not having a good day, when you're flat broke and you need $100, when you're crying because your dog died or your wife or your girlfriend left you or you lost your job. And these people are surrounding themselves to be with you, to pick you up and lift you up. Well, now you're a winner. Okay. You're a winner. And that's what you need in your life. To be with people that will be there for you. And then all of a sudden you'll see how your nerves are. you know, your nerves will start to steady out. But when you feel you're a loser, this is getting back to Joe now. When you feel, "Oh, I can't win, I got to live, people will like me, or I'll feel better about myself if I win that pool game." Yeah, man, there you go. You're putting so much damn pressure on yourself. You can't focus on the opponent. You're worried about you, and you're worried about how you're going to look when this is all over and done with. Well, I'll tell you, every pool game I've lost with my head held high. Okay. I've never put my tail between my legs. I've lost to guys who and girls who were just terrible, lucky shots, and I've lost to guys who should be in the Hall of Fame. You know, just phenomenal players. And it doesn't matter. You know, I was there. I stepped up to the plate, win, lose or draw. Who cares? But if you got to make something of it, you try to rub my nose in it, then no matter how many games you won, you're the loser. And this is getting back to the Super Bowl Bears thing. You know, don't rub the rest of the NFL, don't rub their nose in it. You know, just play the game. It's a game. Win. And then celebrate all you want. But win and play with dignity. Win and play with honesty. And you cannot lose. You're the winner no matter what. No matter how the outcome is, you're the friggin' winner. Sorry to go off on that tangent, but I get so pissed when I see this disrespect now, and you know, in all sports. Um, yeah, and it just beats everybody else down because nobody wants to lose and then get emasculated afterwards. It's bullshit.
Well, that's
So
a problem. A lot of people are like bad. Not only are they bad losers, but they can be bad winners, you know. And that's something that definitely has to be, like, I think, taught back in the culture. You know, I think it has to be, like you said, talked about because it just makes things worse. I was going to kind of on that theme of, you know, we previously on previous podcasts we talked about, oh, like,
I'm not advocating 10th place trophies here. I'm advocating the winner win with dignity and you know, not necessarily console the loser, but pick the loser up. Say, "Hey man, this is what you let me tell you what you did good, or let me tell you what you need to work on. And then you can beat me or you can be more competitive." That's what I'm talking about, you know, because I don't care how good you are at something, you're gonna have that attitude with the wrong guy or the wrong person, and it's too late. I'm sorry now. Go ahead. What were you following up on, Joe?
well, kind of as kind of a training question is, you know, like we talk about conditioning, obviously like cardio and pain training and things like that. Do you think putting yourself into pressure situations that are emotionally uncomfortable, like whether it's, I don't know, giving up, you know, public speaking or, like you said, competing publicly, like you do with pool, has benefits to kind of condition your system to that feeling that you might have in a self-defense situation or that perform or like competing, like let's say in martial arts, that it's something you should deliberately bring into your, you know, your schedule to keep, you know, keep that experience in your mind so you actually have to address that, I guess, get practice addressing the anxiety that you can get yourself into.
I believe yes, but with a caveat that you still have things in your life that you can de-stress. Okay, so what I'm getting at is if you put yourself in such a pressure cooker like public speaking, if you're not used to it, and now you're all worked up after that, you've got to find a way to, you know, to just mellow out from that. Okay. To, you know, de-stress and to, you know, to breathe afterwards and decompress. So if you don't have that in your life, then I'm not sure putting yourself in under more pressure is going to work for you because you don't want to end up with a neurosis here. You don't want to become, you know, a neurotic in a way. And so, yes, it's great if you have the support group, which any psychologist will tell you, having support group is tremendous. And that's something that's lacking in my life right now. I don't have the support group. I have, you know, in essence, zero. So it makes, I got to tread gently. Every time I try to reach out, I absorb somebody else's problems. In essence, I'm putting myself under stress because of them, and I have no way to vent. So, yes, on paper, it's good to overcome your fears or your anxieties, whatever the label may be, but I still think you have to find a way, no matter what it is. It could be a hobby, it could be painting, or I don't know, gardening, or music, whatever. You need to find an escape to calm you down and to bring you down. Um, and that's the issue in my personal life right now. I don't have that, being living where I'm living, and I'm a social creature, and not being able to go out with a group of people who are like-minded, um, and this and that. It's hard. Um, so, but you bring up a very valid point, Joe. I've known, I don't want to mention anybody's name, but I know somebody that I look up to and admire tremendously, who had a phobia, and continue. I mean, the person is older than my mom, and never was able to lick it. Even went to hypnosis and everything. And this person just had such a phobia that it stopped him from eternal greatness. Okay, so like, he would enter a contest when he was young, and every contestant was like, well, they would all huddle around, who's going to come in second, because they knew he was a monster. They knew that this guy had it, he can't lose. Well, he'd lose. He just choked under the pressure. Um, and I, to a degree, continued his whole life. He never found the answer, and you know, but he tried. I know he told me, you know, years and years ago, he went to, to hypnosis to try to help him with it, but I don't know. Maybe it controlled it to a degree, but I never. No, I saw how he did his thing in private, which was earth shaking, and I saw how he did his thing in public, which was, oh, he's pretty good, right? Well, no, he wasn't pretty good. He was the greatest of them all, and he just, couldn't overcome it. So I'm just, for me, I'll never be a world champion pool player. I, even if I had the desire, it's way past my ability. I'm too old for that, but I don't have those kind of nerves anymore. Right. I told you, because I'm under so much tension and stress. And this is what I don't want you guys to go through. I'm under a unique sort of circumstance here, maybe not unique, but unique to us. I'm under strain and stress, and I cannot decompress. So I think I can answer to your questions, totally, Joe. It's so important to find an outlet that you can just, let your hair down and just, breathe again. So I highly recommend everybody out there to find that. And normally that's, for some, maybe it's a competitive thing. Others, it may just be a solo isolated thing. Others, it may be a companionship thing, maybe getting one with nature, watching the birds, or going, whatever. Um, I know what I need. I'm just not able to get what I need out here where I live currently. So, I mean, that's that. But looks like our guest is not going to be a guest.
Yeah, I heard from him. There's some transportation issues, so he asked if we could reschedule.
Yeah, we'll reschedule for another time down the line. I got to see what's up. But it's good that he got in touch. Um, any quick news, Nico, on your permanent residency thing? Where you're moving? No?
Nothing new so far.
Yeah, well, I got room if you need a place. I'm lonely. bring the family. Um, yeah, you guys are, I always say this, how you guys mean a lot to me. You guys are great people. It's, I do think that you have a world of potential, Joe. Nico. Joe, how I feel about you. Nico, you have a world of potential. It's just, the COVID kind of came and knocked everything for a loop, but hopefully one day you're not going to live so far away that I don't get to see you again. If so, we got to just, switch tracks and do the Tri-C and get started on this distance training thing and go for it. But and Joe, you're just a great guy. I'm glad you're going to spend some time with your family today, man. That's cool.
Thank you, man. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah,
Well-
I'm looking forward to getting back on the program. So it might have to start out, just being online, but
Yeah. Well,
really looking
send me
forward
an
to
e-
get back.
get in touch with me. We can talk off air here about what we can do. But yeah, so that's it. I guess I'll see you guys next week. And you know, yeah, I just want to thank everybody out there that's listening. For those that know me, I'm not really doing anything with this podcast as far as the behind the scene. What you see me do is what you see me do. Then Joe uploads it to YouTube, and all I do is put a link on my business Facebook page, and I upload the audio file to my website just so like the podcast companies pick it up. I've never listened to it. I don't follow I don't follow podcasts. So, we're actively trying to get more podcast companies. I don't know what you even call them, podcast companies to carry the podcast. But, I've never been one that knows how to market in 20 some years. I mean, I've did all my websites for the most part, except for like one. I've done all of that, but I'm not good at the marketing. I know nothing about it. And nothing, I've never had anybody through the years just say, I'm taking over. Tony, I'll market this stuff for you. Yeah, I wish that could have happened. Well, it's not happening with the podcasts either. It's just basically us guys. There's one lady behind the scenes, but she's really busy. She's a friend of Joe's. But so I don't know if the podcasts are getting out there, if they're floundering. I know some people are listening to it, but probably because they're seeing the link either on my Facebook or on YouTube. But until it starts to pick up and we get, tens or hundreds of thousands of followers, I don't know how many more big time guests we're going to be able to get, at least now. But I sure know a bunch of people that would be interesting to have on, maybe once, like I said, once a month or something like that. But yeah, that's about it for me, man. I just want to say thanks again to everybody who's out there watching and or listening, and go Cleveland Browns. Go for it. Goodbye, Pittsburgh. We're going to get you today.